Welcome to the Virtual Strategic Solutions Virtual Reality Simulation System. Accessing Legacy Dataset. Files loaded. Simulation ready. An older raider gang originally led by Sledge, the disciples were turned into what they presently are by Nisha, his protege. He killed her parents and took her in as his own, raising her in the violent ways of the wastes. Eventually, Nisha turned the tables on Sledge and killed him after a month of torture. Nisha instituted far-reaching changes into the way the gang operates, rejecting any semblance of morality. To survive in the post-apocalypse, the newly named disciples had to be better than the wildlife or other raiders, more brutal, more merciless, more savage. Their hostility almost cost them the opportunity to seize Nuka-World, in fact, as Nisha cut the throat of the first messenger. Gage didn't hold it against her, however, and the two managed to strike a deal. In exchange for taking over Nuka-World, they would receive a cut of the operations and territory, setting themselves up for life. While the disciples weren't thrilled by the need to cooperate with two other gangs they deemed lesser, they managed to put their reservations on hold long enough to conquer Nuka-World. However, despite a promising start, the situation stagnated. After a year of no activity from Coulter, the nominal overboss, the disciples were getting anxious. The gauntlet only occupied them temporarily, after which they were back to a holding pattern. As such, she supported Gage's plan to remove Coulter and find a new leader for the raiders. Although she is the most brutal of the lot, frequently torturing captives merely for the thrill of it, she enforces strict rules within her gang. Most important of those is not to get caught breaching the rules of Nuka-World or the disciples, including theft, but mainly murder. Punishment is swift and characteristically brutal. Her two lieutenants are Savoy and Dixie, the former acting as an enforcer due to his unflinching loyalty and immunity to seduction. The latter, as second in command, granted the position to contain her psychopathic tendencies by appealing to her vanity. While similar to the pack in their rejection of reason and moral order, the disciples are fundamentally different. The pack revels in debauchery and self-destructive behavior, treating the wasteland as the land of do-as-you-please. However, the disciples see it as an inherently hostile place, where the only way to survive is to be brutal, violent, and unflinching. It's either kill or be killed. In practice, disciples are sadists, preying on the weak, not merely for sustenance, but also sport. Captives are routinely tortured to death at Fizztop Mountain, with their corpses used for decor and blood drained from their bodies for bathing. The disciples use handmade rifles and disciples' blades for combat, though favor the latter when possible. For protection, they use a variety of crudely formed suits of metal armor and cover their bodies from head to toe in rags and leather. Curiously, they also favor headgear that obscures the face, perhaps due to their more intimidating appearance. Nisha leads her group from Nuka-World's Fizztop Mountain. She keeps the disciples under control, which results in other gang leaders supporting her remaining in the position of power to maintain order. Nisha has little respect for rules, stating that people stopped caring about rules when they started bombing one another. Expressing affinity towards the gauntlet, she will also reference the other leaders among the Nuka-World raiders, expressing contempt for Porter Gage and hatred of Coulter. In the first conversation with the player character, Nisha also expresses her hate for Coulter and love for the gauntlet. Dixie is a young woman and a high-ranking member of the disciples. Even in a gang centered on violence and bloodshed, she easily sticks out as the most bloodthirsty and psychopathic among her peers. Her abode inside of Fizztop Mountain is filled with mutilated corpses, cutting implements and trophies in the form of holotapes. Especially the latter trait, the compulsive urge to take souvenirs from her victims, is a common modus operandi among serial killers. Listening to these tapes reveals how Dixie uses persuasion, misdirection, and her girlish demeanor to talk her targets into letting their guard down before she brutally murders them. One of Mags Black's terminal entries in the parlor surmises that Nisha elevated Dixie to her current position to keep her under control, instead of letting her run amok through the park and likely destroy the fragile peace. Savoy is a high-ranking member of the disciples and one of Nisha's top enforcers. In a gang centered around violence and backstabbing, Savoy is notable for his unfailing loyalty to Nisha. When interacted with, he speaks almost exclusively about his eagerness for his next kill. Mags Black once attempted to sway him into becoming an informant for the operators by sending one of her girls to seduce him. When that failed, she assumed Savoy to be gay and sent a male operator, which met with failure as well. She then concluded that Savoy only had eyes for someone he was working for or with, and refrained from trying again. Simulation completed. Please exit the pod, or have a technician select another file.